Ball. It's myself, Adrian, and Kenny Cunningham alongside me until 10 p.m. this evening, and we've lots of good stuff to get into. The Manchester United team to take on Young Boys of Bern. 8 o'clock kickoff in this game at the Stade de Suisse. The United team is David De Gea in goal. It's Shaw, Lindelof, Smalling, and a debut for Diogo Dalot across the back. Fred, Matic and Pogba in the middle. Martial on the right. Kenny's delighted because Marcus Rashford starts on the left and Romelu Lukaku starting up front for United. So that's the team news. By the way, they're playing on a 3G pitch, in case you didn't know. And speaking of Virgin Media this evening, Graham Souness had this to say about Mourinho's complaints over the FC Young Boys pitch.
Any football club, training ground, match days, everything is set by the manager. You know, any player watching that's like, bloody hell. And you know, what you would never do, and again I come back to the greats I worked with at Liverpool. If we were going to play on a dodgy pitch, they'd never mention a pitch. Wouldn't mention a pitch. Don't be planting a seed in anyone's head. The pitch is not good. He's going down opposite road.
But
all the other teams have to go there.
He planted it, Graham, but then he tried to take it out.
I don't want to talk about the pitch, but then he did talk about
Roger Federer then.
Yeah. It's just a grind, isn't it, for him? It really looks a hard job for him at this moment in time.
That's Graham Souness and Mick McCarthy referencing the Jose Mourinho Roger Federer quote this week that he doesn't mind to play on a few different surfaces was the comment there. Virgin Media Sport, of course, the new home of European football in Ireland with more than 400 UEFA Champions League, Europa League and Nations League games live this season. Virgin Media Sport is this season. 400, Kenny.
Seems like this
season. Virgin Media Sport, exclusive to all Virgin Media TV customers who can also download the TV Anywhere app and stream all the action wherever and whenever you like. So that's that. Planting the seed was the thing that sort of jumped out at me there, ironically enough. From Graham Souness in conversation about the idea that a manager could be saying that the pitch is not great and that somehow that seeps into, you used the word osmosis when we discussed it earlier on, and I liked it, seep in somehow into the players' minds.
I'm with him on this.
Really? Because to me it's like if you're allowing that seep in to your mind as a player, like it doesn't suggest you're particularly strong-willed.
Yeah, but if you're not particularly strong-willed, then it will have an effect. So why say it? I don't understand it. For me, it betrays a lack of confidence in his players. It's almost getting that excuse in. I don't trust them if things go wrong, as opposed to, well, I don't expect things to go wrong. I trust this team. Yeah, we're a far better team. We're going to show our quality regardless of the surface. These are the things. It doesn't matter what barriers put in front of us this evening. Nothing's going to, our focus is right, our preparation is right, we're ready, we're going to deal with anything I trust the players. That's what I want to hear from Mourinho, not just tonight, but generally a little bit more of that kind of talk. And I think players do respond to that, because players listen to these interviews as much as the general public. They won't be listening to an hour before kick-off, but they will do tomorrow and the day after.
Said that he speaks to his players via the media. When he's speaking to the media, I'm speaking to my players.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they, I just feel if the players get an indication if that's his kind of thought process, and it won't be a case of players in a huddle. Oh yeah, the manager's giving us a get out. That of course it won't. But it subconsciously you keep hearing all these things. I think in certain players it just might have an effect. But why say it? I don't understand the logic behind it. Now, I know Mourinho's like psychology. Absolute. He's forged a reputation in terms of mind games, etc. But in relation to this, I genuinely don't understand. I don't see the benefit.
Whether any of it matters, of course, is the key point tonight, right? Given the nature of the opposition, it's a nice, gentle easing into the competition for them, presumably.
It's a game they should win, but for me, it's a game they will win because of the team which he's picked. I'm interested in seeing the young boy Dalot. A lot of talk about him, particularly from Mourinho, in terms of the quality which he has. So I'm interested to see him play. A lot of talk of the last year, the problems they had in the kind of full back areas, where we already knew they had the solution. The left back area, Luke Shaw. Eventually he's got his opportunity this year. We won't go down that road again. We've all spoken about that, the situation there in terms of his relationship with Mourinho, how Mourinho has treated him. Dalot is well coming in potentially in that right back position. But for me, it's fundamentally up the pitch. Centre halves, we know you can throw the ball in the air and pick your best partnership. But it's that midfield three, the dynamic in midfield and up front for me, which is absolutely key.
And it's why the balance for you, is that it?
Yeah, the balance. Yeah, absolutely. Rashford off the left, Martial off the right, Lukaku. That front three for me is powerful. Absolutely powerful. That stands up with any front three. A lot of talk of the Liverpool front three and the PSG. you could throw them three in there for me. Absolutely, and make an argument for those three as well. And the midfield, for me, it's been about the fundamental problem. The issue with United over the past couple of years has been the dynamic in midfield, in terms of getting the best out of Pogba. Midfield 2. Midfield 3, which position does Pogba occupy in that formation? For me, this is it. Matic sitting, Pogba advanced to his left, and a player of genuine quality to play as well in that inside right channel. Whether Fred is that good enough a player, I'm not too sure. I like little bits of what I've seen, but the jury's still out. But at least he's isolated, he's targeted the area of the pitch where they needed to improve. Because Manchester United were never going to win a Premiership title with Anders Herrera, and I'm a fan of Herrera, like him, a wholehearted player. Fellaini well in that position, a great impact player, but that's all he can be, Fellaini at Manchester United. No more than an impact player coming off the bench. If he's playing starting 25, 30 league games for United, United have a problem, and they won't win the Premier League. So at least he's looked to address the problem, that central area of the pitch, and I'm fascinated to see if Fred is good enough, and if he is, for me, this is the template for Manchester United going forward.
So if that's the template, is this close enough? I mean, Dalot, we know, is a debut, so who knows how that goes, but there's no Valencia tonight, he hasn't travelled. Young, I mean, must be feeling pretty frustrated because he's only on the bench tonight, and no Lingard either, he hasn't travelled either. So I mean, maybe there's a couple of those players that come in, but close enough to, if that's the right formation, close enough to the right team too, by the looks of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Lingard is one you could argue. You could potentially even argue Lingard in a midfield 3 at the expense of Fred. He's shown his real versatility over the past 18 months. Lingard, he's played in that kind of advanced midfield role for England, so potentially he could actually step in there. He could play off either side, we know that. He can play off the front as a number 10, Lingard, but in this particular formation, you don't play with a 10. You play with a lone striker, and you play with 2 advanced, really 3 orthodox midfielders. Hopefully, Manchester United fans, Fred will be that type of player, but for me, Lingard could very easily come in and play that position as well, alongside Pogba in a kind of in a midfield too. But I like the balance, and I like what I'm seeing, particularly in that central midfield and forward area of the pitch, because United for me still haven't tapped into the potential of Martial, and they've actually put the brakes on Rashford's development with the introduction of Sanchez, like we said a couple of years ago. And for me, Lukaku is going to look an even better player with these 2 players either side.
Is your view that Rashford's best position is on the left, because he obviously plays a little bit more centrally with England and has played pretty well there as well?
I think potentially he can develop into in the centre forward position as an orthodox number 9, as Lukaku's playing for United, or even in the 2s he done with England, plays a pairing up there. For me, he's clever enough. His game understanding is good enough. But for me, from when he was first introduced, playing left of a 3, you could see his kind of athleticism, touch, his football and ability, but he didn't really understand the position. And I thought, I'm not sure he's going to crack it. But over the past kind of, again, like 12, certainly of the last 12 months, 18 months, I've seen him really impressed me, his game intelligence and the positions that he's occupying, coming off the inside, the timing of his runs on the inside, an appreciation now when he actually has to hold his position wide and actually open up the space for other people on the inside. So it's not all about him, me, how can I get on the ball? It's about the team, and sometimes if I don't touch the ball, that's the best thing to do, and allow someone else to walk into that space, particularly Pogba. So his game understanding has been improving, and he's been looking like a player who could potentially function in that position, kind of left of a 3, up until, like we said, Sanchez was introduced. So yeah, I'm really excited at this formation from Manchester United perspective.
All right, interesting to see how Dalot goes as well in the full back position this evening. So that's Young Boys of Byrne up against United. It's live starting at 8 o'clock. We'll keep you up to speed on all of that. Also at 8 o'clock over at the Etihad Stadium is Manchester City up against Lyon, and maybe the most interesting aspect of this is slightly off the pitch, Kenny, where Pep is obviously suspended from a sending off at the back end of last season, so he's out of action. He's not allowed to have any involvement in first team activity at all. I mean, I don't know to what level they've sort of played through scenarios, but Mikel Arteta is Manchester City's manager tonight. Yeah,
I don't think it'll be a big factor, just primarily because the City team is so well drilled and has been under Guardiola. Very particular in terms of what he requires from the team, in terms of his tactical preparation, and I saw that all through the majority of last season. You know, the penny dropped, people understood what was being asked of them, all over the pitch, in possession, out of possession of the ball, and they're just like a well-oiled machine. And when you've got to work as efficiently as that, then really who actually stands in front of those players an hour before kick-off and gives the team talk, to me is null and void. You could argue in terms of his personality, his presence around the place, but in the opening fixture of a Champions League group stage match. I don't think it's a factor whatsoever.
He's delighted, I'm sure, at this point that he. I mean, it seems like, I don't know. I know we're going to talk about even Gazidis, which you're pumped about later on, and the process that they went about picking the new manager at Arsenal. And they all went for the same guy. Apparently, they all sort of made their choices, wrote it down on a bit of paper, put it in the bowl in the middle, and then opened them. And they all had number 1 Emery. I kind of wondered if they all had number 2 Mikel Arteta, and where he was at with that position. But I mean, I guess from his point of view, he's working with what's perceived to be the best manager on the planet at the minute. I mean, his Guardiola suspension is perfect for him now, because he's getting to dip his toe in a little bit, in a way that it's perfectly safe environment for him, in a way that like most managers don't ever get to do until you take the full job.
Can't be easy to walk away from that, albeit I'm sure he has aspirations to be a manager. I think publicly he's come out and said that. But to be in that type of environment, Manchester City, to work under Guardiola's coaching staff in that type of working environment which they have up there, in terms of the infrastructure now at the football club, the environment, the winning kind of mentality around the place. He's operating at a real high elite level there, clearly. Not easy to walk away from that, even if you're operating as a number 2 and 1 and desperately want to be a manager one day. So I can understand it. I think potentially it was the right decision to sit there and be a little bit patient. That opportunity will present itself again, possibly even at Arsenal, or certainly I feel at another football club. From the outside looking in, it looks as if his reputation has been enhanced. He's getting a lot of credit. The manager, I think, is deflecting a lot of credit towards him, his support staff, and Arteta in particular, and giving him a huge amount of credit. So I think his stock is only going to rise because of that. And I mean, to be working in that environment with that group of players, the individual quality that you have there from a coaching perspective, putting your coaching hat on, it must be magic.
But it's a nightmare in the long run, because it's totally untypical. Like, I mean, maybe Mikel Arteta walks into a top 3 or 4 or 6 job in the Premier League, but if he doesn't, the experience that he's getting at City is, I mean, I'm not saying it's no use to him, but he's dealing with a different quality.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure he's intelligent enough to realise that. He gets his first job, the job becomes available at Rotherham. He's not stupid enough to walk in the door and say, "Right, lads, we're going to play the beautiful game here, centre half. So I want you to drag it. Little dropping your shoulder on the edge of the box." I'm sure he's got the intelligence to realise that. But it must be a kind of a football education, particularly Guardiola, the type of manager that he is, or we're led to believe that he is, very much an educator, innovator in terms of ideas. I mean, that type of environment, you know what I mean? That must be great to be involved in that and to be a part of that. And he'll benefit from that going forward, without a doubt.
Grant, we've some predictions to get from you, Kenny, but hold fire on them. I have a fair idea where you're going with one of them anyway. Hold fire on that. We'll be back to those and a few more comments in just a minute.
This is the new Red Cow Moran Hotel. In other words, we're bigger, way bigger. We've added 152 guest rooms, so now we have the newest rooms in one of Dublin's best locations. Coupled with new facilities and services, we think it's worth making